Hello, my name's Val, and I'm 34 years old. My mom passed away when I was just 5 years old. My dad raised me by himself for the next 7 years. When I was about 11, he told me he was seeing someone. As a child, I didn't really care much about it. When I turned 12, Dad introduced me to his girlfriend and announced they were going to get married soon. My first thought was that she seemed really young. Her name was Jodie, and I later found out she was only 10 years older than me. I remember being a bit freaked out by the small age gap between us, but eventually I stopped caring about it. Jodie and I didn't have the best relationship. She was overbearing and kept trying to be my mother. I tried talking to my dad about it, but he sided with Jodie. I didn't like it, and as soon as I turned 18, I moved out. Even after moving out, I maintained a good relationship with my dad. We would go out for lunch every other weekend. Initially, Dad tried to involve Jodie in my life, but when he saw I wasn't budging, he dropped it. However, he often talked about how much he loved Jodie, hoping I would come around because she meant so much to him. I was doing well in my life. I managed to get a job at a reputable firm right out of college. I wasn't rich, but I wasn't living paycheck to paycheck either. I was comfortable and had started saving early on. In a couple of years, I was doing amazingly well. When I was 28, my dad got into a freak accident and passed away. His death was devastating. The only family member I had was gone. I was a mess, crying myself to sleep every night and barely functioning during the day. I was lucky enough to get a week off work to grieve. Despite my feelings about Jodie, I knew she loved my dad, so I made sure to check on her regularly. The first time I visited her after Dad's death, she seemed normal. I didn't expect her to be in mourning clothes, but I thought she'd look a little worse for wear. I knew I looked awful: puffy eyes, dark circles, red nose, and splotchy skin from crying. Jodie, on the other hand, looked completely fine. I know this sounds judgmental, but I hope to feel like I wasn't the only one grieving so deeply for the man who was my world. However, my suspicions faded when she started crying as we talked about Dad. After that first visit, I started visiting Jodie more often. We would have tea and talk about everything we were feeling. I thought we were finally starting to develop a connection. I was tired of her trying to replace my mother, so it was nice to talk to her as just herself. One day, while we were talking, Jodie suddenly burst into tears. Alarmed, I went over to her to let her cry on my shoulder. When she calmed down a bit, I asked her what was wrong. "Is everything okay? What's wrong?" "I just got a letter from the bank," she said. "Oh, what did they say?" "You know how I've been super busy taking care of your dad these past few months, along with all the medical expenses." "Yeah. Well, I haven't had much money to pay off our mortgage, which has now transferred to me. I don't even have a job. I'm going to be homeless." "Oh no, is that what the bank told you?" "Yeah. They've given me 4 months to pay off all my dues, along with the 4 months mortgage payments. I don't have that kind of money. Your dad didn't leave me much." "I know it's okay." "No, it's not okay. Calm down, Jodie. I have some money in my savings. I can help you out." "Really? You'd do that for me?" "Yeah, of course. You've become someone I understand recently, and I value you a lot. Plus, Dad would have been happy with me for doing this for you." "Thank you so much, Val. If I do help you with your payments, I have 2 conditions. Yeah, I can't rent a place and pay your mortgage. I'll need to move in." "Of course, honey. This house is yours too." "Great. Secondly, I can't keep paying off your mortgage forever. You need to find a job soon and start taking care of it. I can contribute half, but you'll need to find a job and over time pay me back. I promise I will." I felt sympathetic towards Jodie. Going from being financially stable to desolate is a big and scary change. I couldn't imagine the anxiety Jodie must have been feeling, but I had a good amount in my savings. If there was one thing my dad taught me, it was to always have a financial cushion because you never know when hard times will come. Over the next week, I contacted Jodie's bank and started working on the mortgage repayments to stop the foreclosure. She hadn't paid the mortgage in 4 months, so there were late fees and pre-foreclosure fees, totaling about $112,000. I had enough in my savings to cover it, but it made a significant dent. Jodie was extremely grateful that I managed to prevent the foreclosure. She went all out and prepared a feast to thank me. It was refreshing to see her gratitude since the Jodie I knew before would have acted a little entitled to my help. I reminded her that she needed to start job hunting soon, and she promised she had already started looking. I moved in with Jodie, and it was interesting to live with her again. Jodie was more demanding than I remembered, insisting the house be spotless. While she tried to apply the same standard to my room, I made it clear that my room was my space and I liked it as it was. She relented, probably recognizing that the house she was being demanding about was only hers because of my help. We had occasional spats, but for the most part, it was good living with her. Slowly but surely, weeks turned into months and then into years. After a year, I grew frustrated with Jodie for not finding a job. She kept saying she was searching, but I never saw any results. I didn't even hear her mention having an interview. I confronted her about it, and she got very defensive. Jodie, I don't mean to be harsh, but when are you going to get a job? Do you think I'm not trying? No, that's not what I meant. It's just been a year since you promised, and I need to know how much longer I have to keep paying the mortgage. I don't know when it will happen, okay? Have you had any interviews so far? No, but I haven't been getting any responses. How about applying for a part-time job at least? No way. I'm trying to help you out here. I can't keep paying your mortgage, Jodie. If it's such a hassle for you, then don't do it. I'll just be homeless. I'm sure your dad would have been happy to see me struggling like that. No, it's okay. I'll keep paying, but I can't do this forever. Yeah, and I'll find a job. Just give me some time. It didn't click at that time, but using my dad to appeal to me was kind of messed up. I kept paying off the mortgage for a while after that. Jodie became more overbearing, getting annoyed about when I got home and who I hung out with during weekends. It irked me, but I initially kept quiet. When she got out of hand, I stood up for myself. She would quiet down but would go weeks without talking to me properly, and I felt a growing dislike from her, reminiscent of how she was when my dad was alive. Despite this, I continued helping her. After another year, I decided to put my foot down. I never saw Jodie make an effort to start working. One day, when she was out, I went through her emails on her laptop that she had left unlocked. I discovered that in the past 2 years, she had only applied to one firm, and that was right after I agreed to help her with the mortgage. I was angry and disgusted by her ability to lie to me after I had been so accommodating. When she came home that night, I told her I was no longer going to help her out. Needless to say, Jodie did not take that well. How can you do this to me? I've given you 2 years to figure things out. You've refused every piece of advice I've given you and haven't made any effort to get your life together. You really think I haven't been making any effort? Jodie, I know you aren't making any effort. You're just making false accusations. All right, then why don't you show me all the places you've applied to this year? That's an invasion of my privacy. Look, I'm glad we've been able to develop a good relationship over the past few years, and I'm happy I could help you out. But I need to start looking out for my future. I never wanted to own a house, and I hate that I'm stuck paying for something that was never part of my plan. Oh God, what am I going to do? Jodie sobbed for a long time, and though it got to me, I left her there that night because I was still angry with her. I decided to do some research to help Jodie out. I knew I couldn't keep providing for her, so if there was any way she could keep herself afloat, I wanted to help her find it. The next day, Jodie refused to talk to me, but I asked if she would just listen. I suggested she file for bankruptcy to get an extension on the loan payments and possibly get a break from paying it for about 5 years. Jodie finally acknowledged me and asked if I could help her with the paperwork. Of course I agreed, and we spent the next few weeks getting everything approved. Once Jodie was free of her mortgage payments for the next 5 years, I reminded her that she still needed to get back on her feet. Coldly, she told me she had things under control and asked me to move on. That hurt, but I guess that's what happens when you stop letting someone use you. I moved out within the next month and got my finances back on track. About 2 years later, I got a promotion at work, which allowed me to save more money and make some big investments. Jodie and I barely kept in contact. She didn't make any effort to reach out, but I tried because at the end of the day, she was my dad's wife and he loved her dearly. I would ask how she was doing and if she had managed to find a job. She always spoke coldly and told me to mind my business. Initially upset by her behavior, I eventually let it go. My life was going well until about 5 months after Jodie's bankruptcy period ended when she showed up at my door. I was surprised, having not spoken to her for months. I had an inkling about what she wanted and prepared myself to stand my ground and tell her I wasn't going to help her again. When I saw her, she looked like an absolute mess, her hair disheveled. having lost a lot of weight and looking like she hadn't slept in months. Things look really rough for you. Is everything okay? I asked. No, I'm struggling a lot. I'm so sorry to hear that. Yeah, after you left, I went into a spiral. At least when you were there, I wasn't completely alone, but after you left, I realized just how alone I was. I tried to reach out to you, but you always pushed me away. I know, and I'm so sorry for that. I didn't mean to push you away and be so hurtful. I was just angry with a lot of things. Like what? I was angry with myself for being so alone. I was angry with your dad for leaving me alone. And I was angry that I was struggling so much. I get that. It's been 5 years, and I still haven't been able to find a job. I've been so depressed. I've nearly exhausted all the money your dad left me, and my family is cutting off their help. I tried to explain how I've been feeling, but they simply won't understand. In fact, they won't even listen to me. Oh, Jodie, I didn't know you were struggling this much. I hate constantly coming back to you. You've done the most for me, but if there's any way. I was torn. On one hand, I had resolved not to help Jodie anymore. But on the other, she was clearly struggling. I knew firsthand what depression could do to someone, and I empathized with her. Before I knew it, I was telling Jodie I would help her again. She cried with joy and thanked me profusely. I was happy I could help her, understanding her struggles and not wanting to leave her stranded when she was suffering. The next week, I was back at the bank figuring things out for Jodie. It turned out she hadn't made her mortgage payments for 5 months. I wondered why she didn't get her mortgage readjusted to reduce the monthly payments, but I rationalized it by thinking she was suffering too much to think clearly. As I reviewed Jodie's mortgage, I realized she only had about $75,000 left to pay off, including late fees, to be completely done with it. With her mortgage now paid off, I had saved enough over the past 5 years to cover the remaining amount. I checked with Jodie if she wanted me to pay off her mortgage and allow her to repay me over time. She cried and asked if that was possible. When I confirmed it was, she promised to pay me back. I told her I would get her promise in writing within the next week and then pay her loan off. Somehow, she convinced me to pay her loan first and then make the contract with her. After settling her loan, I went to her place. There was an unfamiliar car in the driveway and the front door was unlocked. Inside, I heard Jodie laughing with another man. In the living room, I saw Jodie sitting on his lap with her arms around him. This made me feel icky, especially since just a week ago, she had been professing her undying love for my dad. She frequently brought up my dad, likely to emotionally blackmail me into paying off her loan. When Jodie noticed me standing there, she laughed and pointed at me while speaking to her partner. Darling, look, that's the girl I was telling you about. She's the daughter of the man from whom I got this house. I tricked her into paying it off, and now we can live here happily. What are you talking about? I asked, shocked. Oh, don't tell me you're really that stupid. You really think I couldn't get a job? I knew you could, and that's exactly why I stopped paying for you the first time around. That was an act? I asked, incredulous. Of course. Did you even love my dad? God, no. I just needed the money because I didn't want to work. I was tired of constantly being tired. So I married an older man with money. Man, I really hoped he'd live longer. You were sick. I can't believe I helped you out for so long. I can't believe my dad fell for you. Do you even know how much he loved you? Yeah, I don't care. Say what you want. At the end of the day, I own a house, and that's all I care about. Plus, I get to live here with my boyfriend. I stormed out of the house, tears streaming down my face. I wanted nothing more than to hurt Jodie. How could she do something so vile? I knew I couldn't let her win that easily. I had a plan. Since I was transferring a large amount, my bank was holding the money for a day to give me the opportunity to cancel the transaction. Jodie didn't know about this. If she had been smart, she would have waited to reveal her grand scheme. I was grateful for her stupidity. I called my bank and canceled the transaction, then blocked Jodie's number and all her social media accounts. I made sure there was no way for her to reach me. I knew it would take her another month or so to realize the mortgage payment wasn't done. Meanwhile, I decided to move as well. I was hurting, but I was glad I could give Jodie a taste of her own medicine. From what I found out later, Jodie's house did get foreclosed. Mutual friends and connections told me she had been couch surfing for a while. Her boyfriend left her, and she had no income. She tried to badmouth me, but no one sided with her. Many even reached out to check on how I was doing. I felt vindicated, denying her the opportunity to own my dad's house. I've learned never to let anyone use my emotions against me. People can be crappy and will use you if given the chance. I've learned to let go once I've been burned because people rarely change. In a way, I'm grateful for this experience. I will continue to live happily and honor my dad's memory without letting it influence my decisions.